Greetings from Lund, Sweden. Yes, I'm in Sweden. How did I get here? It's a long story. Where do I begin? So what am I doing in Sweden other than trying to catch up on sleep? I'm not used to the 6-hour difference. I just got up from a nap and I'm feeling zonked. It's been a very slow transition to the time zone change. Especially working with clients, some of whom are in Europe and others in Eastern US and some in the Western US, and one in South America. So I'm always bouncing time zones, which is difficult at home, but here it's even more challenging. So the World Masters Mountain Running Championships, which is this Saturday in Southern Ireland, was not on my calendar. It was not something that I was planning on doing. But it just so happened that all of my ducks lined up and I'm pretty healthy. I'm relatively uninjured, and there was an opportunity to come to Sweden. So Ireland's not that far from Sweden. So it just kind of happened last minute. And I want to talk a bit about how something like that happens. How do you just show up at a world championship if it's not something that you've been working towards? My new process now, which is all about process, by the way, is about making sure that I am consistently active as often as possible, which means moving 2 to 5 times a day, every day. Those sessions don't have to be big. They start out as touches. They start out as explorations. But the goal is just to make the barrier to entry so small that I'm inclined to move throughout the day, all day, every day. And in reality, it doesn't take willpower or discipline to do that because your body naturally wants to move. It doesn't like to be stuck and static. We learn to put our bodies on a leash when we're somewhere in middle school. But kids, you don't have to tell them to run around and scream. They just do it naturally. It doesn't need to be on a to-do list somewhere. But eventually we're socialized to sit and pay attention and focus, which is not normal and natural for human beings, I don't think. Anyway, it's what is normal in our culture, even if our bodies don't really like it that much. So, by letting myself off leash throughout the day, I get in pretty good shape without trying. So the goal of this, or should I say the experimental goal, is to always be in 80% of my peak fitness, always. Because you're never going to achieve 100%, or at least maybe once in your life will you hit 100% of your fitness potential. And even 95% peak fitness is a rarity and not something that you can sustain or maintain, nor is it something that you can count on, because the training required to hit that level of fitness is pretty intense. To do the top end stuff, to do the hardcore intervals. And as an aging athlete, I have to be really careful about the intensity of the work that I do, because it's likely to lead to injury, number one. And number two, it's unmotivating. It's hard. And I don't like having it on my to-do list. It makes me want to avoid the training. And then it makes me feel like I hadn't done everything that I could have done to prepare for the event. So my new mode now is to just train high volume, relatively low intensity, and to get myself into 80% of peak fitness, because aerobic efficiency is the lion's share of your fitness. VO2 max is the icing on the cake. But if you can develop a gigantic aerobic base, which continues to evolve, whereas VO2 max has a definite limit, and there's only so much room you can grow there, aerobic efficiency can grow for years and years and years. So focusing on the lower end training increasing aerobic capacity, increasing aerobic efficiency, allows me to stay at the 80% year-round. And here's the thing, 80% right now is a lot faster than it was last year and than it was the year before. So 80% isn't static. My 80% now might be equivalent to 90 or 95% last year or the year before. And this is something that's been really interesting in skiing. My roller ski training times have gotten faster and faster, but my effort remains the same. So now it's pretty easy for me to go out and roller ski with an average of 5 minutes and 20 seconds per mile and be pretty comfortable. Whereas in the past, 6:20 per mile would have been comfortable. So there's been a huge evolution in my aerobic capacity without doing any hard work. And it used to be that the hard work for me was primarily racing. I would race every weekend just because I hate doing intervals. I hate doing track sessions. I hate doing hill repeats. It's just totally unmotivating. It sours me to the sport. So a race a weekend would be my hard training for the week. And it didn't turn me off because I got to see friends. I got to challenge myself in a venue that didn't feel forced. When I'm in a race and the gun goes, I don't have to force myself to run fast. It just naturally happens. Again, taking myself off leash. Shoot gun, I go. But interval sessions, there's a lot of hesitancy. So here I am today in Sweden, about to catch a train to Ireland in the middle of the night. No, that's not true. I'm going to catch a train to Copenhagen, Schopenhagen, as they say here, and then fly to London, fly to Dublin, take a 3-hour bus to Southern Ireland for the race. So it's going to be 12 hours of travel tomorrow, which is not ideal, but hey, at least I'll be in a better time zone. So because I've been able to maintain 80% fitness and therefore continue to grow what 80% is capable of providing for me, when this race came on the calendar, or should I say when it was brought to my attention, I've got a bunch of teammates going, I thought, okay, I'm in pretty good shape. I'm in my 80% shape, but I think that's good enough to be really competitive at a world championship. And the toe injury that I sustained back in June, which is both figuratively and literally hobbled me in regards to training, the bone is broken, but it's an avulsion fracture. So rather than snapping the bone, I chipped the bone. So when I came down on the piece of exposed rebar, it basically tore a chunk of bone out. But when I went to the doctor, he said, it's okay, it's stable. The bone chip is floating in your joint, so it is going to hurt, but you're good to go. And eventually that bone chip will reabsorb into your system, he said. That's likely. So when he gave me the go-ahead a couple weeks ago, I signed up. I thought, okay, I can run. I don't have to worry about the downhills because there's some very steep downhills in the race in addition to ups, lots of pounding, and I didn't want to have a foot that I had to worry about. So this is a very last-minute thing, and this new style of training has yielded some pretty extraordinary results already. Back to the ski championships, the world champs in March in Canada, placing fourth, just skiing very relaxed and comfortably, and just 1.8 seconds out of second place. That was a super surprise because I wasn't training hard, I wasn't racing hard, I was just training a lot, as often as possible. So here we are, got a world championship coming up again Saturday, with just easy volume. And in addition, I'm 13 pounds heavier now than I was as a runner. I would range between 143 and 145 pounds. Now I'm up to 158. So I continue to put on muscle mass. most of which is in my upper body. My legs don't seem to want to grow, even with all the elliptical and ski training. They're pretty static, but my upper body is getting quite a bit larger, so I've got 13 pounds more to move around, of course, but I'm very strong. I've got great endurance, and here's the real kicker for me. What's so exciting about this race? Anybody that follows me on Strava will see me talk about Bigfoot or Bigfoot light, which is essentially being in a lowered position. So my knees are bent, and I'm about 5 feet 3 inches tall when I'm in a Bigfoot, and I'm 5 feet 9 inches when I'm not, when I'm standing straight up. So I'm down 6 inches or 15 centimeters. So not a deep squat or lunge, but a 15 centimeter, 6-inch squat, and I stay at that height. I don't let my head bob up and down. The whole point of the Bigfoot is to keep your head at that level. And why? How did this come about? Because I was filming trails in Vermont and I didn't want the camera to bounce. So I used the technique that film crews use in Los Angeles. I used to watch them when I was on set, the Steadicam operators. And they have a certain kind of walk that they do, which became my Bigfoot, because they don't want to bounce. So their head remains level. And it's a slow motion racing stride. Because you're lower, you've got to lift your legs 6 inches higher to get them in front of you. So you've got high knees, and you also, you'll lose balance if your leg doesn't push way out the back. So you also get lots of glute and calf engagement at the far end behind you. So it's like a really long, slow motion racing stride under load. So just stand up, drop yourself 6 inches, and then walk without your head bouncing. Which means that the shock absorption is going to have to take place in your legs and not your spine. You don't want any of the energy translating up into your body. You want to keep all of it in the lower half of your body. So I've been doing a lot of that on the treadmill, walking on the treadmill. And it's fascinating because I did run on the Appalachian Trail a few weeks ago, and I pushed pretty hard. And I looked at the Strava segment to see how it compared, like what kind of shape am I in? It was just a one-off. Again, I don't like to push, but every now and again, I can just one-off an effort. And I was pretty pumped with the time until I came back and looked at the my fastest time, which was a minute faster on a course that's about 8 minutes long. That's a gigantic difference. And I was really just smacked in the face. It's like, wow, okay. In 2017, I was a minute faster. Yikes. But then I looked at that workout in 2017, and I looked at the description. I didn't run that time. I Bigfoot that time. I had forgotten that this was part of my experimentation back then. And 2017 is also the last time that I broke 16 minutes in a 5K. And now that I've gone back and looked at my workouts, I was Bigfooting almost everything and got super fast, without doing any running or speed work at all. So I thought, how in the world did I Bigfoot all the way up this mountain and go a minute faster? It doesn't seem possible. So I did an experiment on Mount Anthony in Bennington, which has some very, very steep trails, 20 to 30% slopes. And I tried running up the hill, and then I switched into a Bigfoot. And lo and behold, it's faster than running. And it feels initially like it's a lot more work. You feel the load and the burn instantly. But I can sustain it because I do it all the time. And now I'm super curious to Bigfoot the big climbs at the World Championships, because I think it's going to be a heck of a lot faster than running. So this has become super exciting for me, because lots of my experiments are coming together in this one moment, and it doesn't matter what the result is. I don't need to get on the podium, nor do I expect to. It's a very, very deep field, and the Irish are going to be well represented, and they're just insane on the downhills. And this is a race where you have to be insane on the downhills, and I'm not as good on the downhills as I used to be. I've got arthritis in my ankle, I think. I thought it was a tendon issue, but it's just not going away, and it's moving around, so I think it's arthritis. So I'm cautious on the downhills now because it's a lot of pain. But it's fun to bring all these experiments to Ireland and to see what happens. Because whatever does happen, I'm in a world championship using experimental training. I'm going to be using an experimental running style and just out there seeing what's possible. Rather than taking it seriously and training very specifically for it, this is how I want my life to go from now on. I just want to have casual, experimental interactions that are non-stressful and that yield pretty big results. Again, 80% fitness for me now is elite level for anyone my age. And I don't have to try to get there because of the volume, the frequency of my training. It's pretty easy. And here in Sweden, I've been walking mostly, roller skiing and walking. I did one run and decided, didn't feel like running. So just walking, lots of walking and roller skiing, and we'll see how that translates. But to me, that's fun, to not follow the standard protocol and to live the way I want to and still participate in events like this. So I will keep you posted and show you the race maybe.